Have you ever cried in silence, wondering if anyone, if God himself, saw what they did to you? The betrayal that broke you. The words that wounded you. The moments you were left alone, doing right while being wronged. Let me tell you right now, heaven missed nothing. This isn't just a message, it's divine confirmation. The spiritual battles you've been fighting weren't emotional flukes, they were prophetic assignments. You're not just hurting. You're being positioned. And for the chosen ones who have remained faithful in hidden places, who have sown in tears and endured in silence, this is your word. God is about to make it known why he allowed the silence, because now, he's about to speak through your story. You've been growing in ways the world couldn't see. But your spiritual growth has not gone unnoticed in heaven. What felt like rejection was really redirection. What felt invisible is about to become invincible. And this isn't about revenge, it's about redemption. About a testimony so loud it silences every lie spoken over your name. So stay with me through this video. Because this could be the moment where the waiting ends, and the shift begins. This is for your purpose, for your healing, for your spiritual growth. Comment below in faith, God saw it all. Let that be your declaration today. If you're new here, welcome to Spiritual Journals, a community for chosen ones walking in truth, in power, and in purpose. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because what God is doing in this season, you won't want to miss. Thank you for being here. You're not just watching a video, you're stepping into a word that was waiting for you. The God who sees in silence. Just because God hasn't spoken yet, doesn't mean he hasn't seen. That silence you've been enduring. That long stretch of unanswered prayers, the quiet in the room where you've cried alone, the stillness where you once expected thunder. That silence is not God ignoring you. It's heaven preparing something sacred. Something strategic. Something unstoppable. In Exodus 3 verse 7, God speaks to Moses with words that echo through time. I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings. These are not casual observations. This is intimate awareness. I have seen. I have heard. I know. Not past tense. Present. Ongoing. Deeply personal. Maybe right now, you're in that in-between. You haven't seen the miracle yet. You haven't heard the answer. But I promise you, God has been watching all along. He saw when they walked away. He saw when you were falsely accused. He saw when you chose forgiveness instead of retaliation. You thought no one noticed the nights you fell asleep praying. Heaven did. And God took it personally. Silence is not divine forgetfulness, it's divine focus. God sees more in your stillness than others see in your storm. When you chose not to respond in anger, when you bit your tongue instead of defending yourself, when you prayed instead of panicking, that wasn't weakness. That was spiritual maturity in motion. That was heaven's secret weapon being activated, patience. Because here's what most don't understand, patience is not passive, it's prophetic. Every time you chose to trust instead of retaliate, every time you worshipped with tears in your eyes, you weren't just waiting, you were waging war. Silent, strategic war. In Isaiah 64 verse 4, it says, "No eye has seen any God besides you, who acts on behalf of those who wait for him." That's not just a promise. That's a picture of your life. You've waited, and now God is getting ready to act on your behalf. Think of David, hiding in caves while Saul hunted him like an animal. God had already anointed him king. The promise was real. The calling was sure. But David had to wait in silence. He could have fought back. He had opportunities to kill Saul and force his way into the throne. But he chose honor. He chose humility. And in doing so, he chose God's timing over man's manipulation. That is why, when the throne finally came, no one could take it from him. Maybe you're like David right now. You know there's a calling on your life. You know you were meant for more. But all you see is a cave. All you hear is silence. Don't mistake the cave for a curse. It's actually a classroom. A place where character is built, strength is refined, and trust becomes unshakable. Here's the truth: the reason God is silent is not because he's inactive, it's because he's building something eternal behind the scenes. And perhaps, just perhaps, he's giving your enemies time to overplay their hand. He's allowing those who underestimated you to expose themselves. Your silence. It's a trap, but not for you. It's for those who thought your quietness meant defeat. What they didn't know is that you were trusting a God who works best in the dark. Seeds grow in silence. Stars shine in silence. Miracles unfold in silence. In Lamentations 3 verse 26, it says, "It is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord." That kind of waiting doesn't look like much to the world. But in heaven, it looks like faith on fire. And let's not forget about Hagar. Abandoned, mistreated, wandering in the wilderness. She thought no one saw her. She was a servant, a woman discarded, crying out in despair. And then God shows up, not with condemnation, but with comfort. And she names him El Roi, the God who sees me. Genesis 16 verse 13. You might feel like Hagar. Discarded. Overlooked. But there is a name of God that is only understood in the wilderness, El Roi. The one who sees. Not just the outside. Not just the part of you that shows up to work or church or family dinner with a smile. No, he sees you. The thoughts you can't share. The pain you hide. The prayers you whisper through clenched teeth and tear-soaked pillows. He's seen it all. And he's been taking notes. He's seen what they said behind your back. He's seen what you sacrificed in silence. He's seen the heart you kept pure even when everything in you wanted to lash out. And now, he's moving. You may not feel it, but this is the moment when heaven starts tipping in your direction. You'll feel it in unexpected peace. In the favor that makes no sense. In the way things start aligning without your effort. And when it happens, you'll remember, this victory wasn't won in the spotlight. It was won in the silence. So what should you do while you wait? Be still, but be faithful. Be quiet, but be expectant. Instead of asking, why is God silent, ask, what is God building? Maybe he's building your credibility. Maybe he's deepening your discernment. Maybe he's sharpening your wisdom so you'll know what to do when the door opens. One powerful act you can do today is to write a letter to God, not to request anything, but to thank him in advance. Thank him for seeing what others missed. Thank him for defending you in ways you couldn't defend yourself. Thank him for being a just judge, a faithful friend, a silent strategist. Or take a moment to go on a thank you walk, just you and God. No requests. No explanations. Just walking and whispering, thank you, God, for seeing me. Let your tears be prayers. Let your footsteps be faith. Because soon, very soon, what was hidden will be revealed. What was delayed will be delivered. What was silent will shout. And it will be God's justice on full display. If this word has touched you deeply, write in the comments, God, I trust your silence. And as a sign of faith, I bless you, may the one who sees all raise you up, restore your name, and reward your stillness with supernatural breakthrough. You are seen. You are loved. And the silence is about to end. Strength hidden in humility. They underestimated you because you stayed quiet. They mistook your stillness for surrender. They thought your silence meant defeat. But what they didn't realize is that heaven was watching your restraint, and calling it strength. In Isaiah 30 verse 15, God speaks a truth most of the world has forgotten: in quietness and trust is your strength. That's not weakness. That's spiritual courage. That's not passivity. That's prophetic positioning. You didn't lash out. You didn't clap back. You didn't manipulate the situation to clear your name. Instead, you knelt. You prayed. You waited. You chose the harder, holier path, the one where God fights for you. Let's be honest. It hurt to stay silent. It hurt when they misunderstood you, misrepresented you, or left you out. And maybe you had every right to defend yourself, to speak up, to correct the lies, but you didn't. Not because you were afraid, but because you trusted that God sees what man cannot see, and God vindicates like no one else can. You knew your silence wasn't emptiness, it was power. It was peace under pressure. And that's the kind of faith that heaven honors. There's a story in Scripture that captures this beautifully. Remember Joseph? Betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, thrown into prison, his life was a sequence of injustice. And yet, he never tried to take matters into his own hands. He didn't curse his brothers. He didn't fight Potiphar's wife. He didn't lash out at Pharaoh's butler for forgetting him. He waited. And in that waiting, in that humility, God was lifting him higher than anyone could have imagined. Joseph went from a prisoner to the palace, not because he forced his way in, but because he remained faithful in obscurity. That's the strength humility carries. It doesn't clamor for attention. It doesn't chase platforms or vindication. It trusts in a timing that's bigger than the clock. And when that moment comes, God doesn't just lift you, He publicly honors what was once privately endured. James 4 verse 10 says, "Humble yourselves before the Lord, and He will lift you up." He will, not might. It's a divine promise. And for those who have been walking through this season of quiet faithfulness, your lifting is not just coming. It's being orchestrated. If you've ever felt overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated because you chose the path of peace, let this be your confirmation: heaven values what the world ignores. Man praises boldness, charisma, and noise. But God is drawn to the gentle spirit, the steady heart, the soul who chooses trust over control. Let's also remember David. Before he ever faced Goliath, he was in the fields, tending sheep. No spotlight. No applause. Just him, a harp, and God. He learned the strength of humility before he held a crown, and even when he had every chance to kill King Saul and take the throne by force, he refused. He said in 1 Samuel 24 verse 6, "The Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my master, the Lord's anointed." In other words, I will not rush what God has promised. That's strength. The kind that says, I'll wait as long as I have to, because I'd rather have God's favor than man's approval. Maybe you've been in a place where it feels like your patience has been punished. You've served quietly, loved loyally, given generously, forgiven deeply, and yet, the recognition, the reward, the breakthrough hasn't come, yet. But hear this, Galatians 6 verse 9 reminds us, "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we will reap, if we do not give up." That season is approaching. And when it comes, it will be a harvest not just of answered prayers, but of restored honor. The same mouths that doubted you will be the ones to declare what God has done in your life. And not because you proved yourself, but because you humbled yourself. God is a just God. He doesn't overlook faithfulness. He doesn't forget obedience. He is not mocked. What they sowed in cruelty, you will reap in justice. What you sowed in tears, you will reap in joy. So don't regret your quietness. Don't question your humility. Don't second-guess your restraint. What you chose in those private moments of pain was a declaration of trust. You may not have realized it at the time, but you were echoing the heart of Jesus. When falsely accused, he opened not his mouth. When beaten, he didn't curse back. When nailed to the cross, he forgave instead of fighting back. That's not weakness. That's the strength that saved the world, and that same strength lives in you. Here's a fresh activity to deepen that truth: write a testimony journal. Not just of what God has done, but of what He's kept you from doing. Write down the moments where you could have retaliated but didn't. Record the times you held your peace. Thank God for giving you the grace to endure with dignity. That's part of your testimony too. Not just what happened, but what didn't, because of him. Or perhaps you take a symbolic step, go for a walk somewhere quiet, and as you walk, thank God for every moment you held back when you wanted to fight back. Let each step be an acknowledgement of your journey, your growth, your character, your obedience. God sees it all. And He's not just going to restore you. He's going to honor you. So if this word is speaking to your heart today, declare it in the comments. God, I waited in silence, now I'm ready for your justice. That comment isn't just interaction. It's intercession. It's faith in motion. Let it be your prophetic signal that you're stepping into your due season. May God bless you for every moment you stayed silent when you wanted to scream. May He reward you for every time you chose love over revenge. May He honor your humility with heavenly promotion. This is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your vindication. And it's harvest time, for justice. When the wait was warfare. Waiting can feel like wilderness. Like an endless stretch of unanswered prayers, silent nights, and invisible battles. But what if I told you the waiting wasn't wasted? That your delay was actually divine warfare, and your struggle was part of something sacred? Every tear you've cried, God saw it. Every sleepless night, He recorded it. Every silent moment when you chose to worship through the ache instead of giving up, He counted it as intercession. You weren't falling apart. You were being fortified. You weren't forgotten. You were being formed. Psalm 56 verse 8 paints this picture with tenderness and truth. You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book. Let that sink in. God is not indifferent to your pain. He's not distracted. He doesn't overlook or dismiss your weeping. He remembers. Every sigh, every ache, every tear, He's kept them close, not as tokens of defeat, but as testimony to your endurance. And now, this very moment, you may be closer than you think. You've been sensing something shifting, haven't you? That feeling deep in your soul that won't let you rest. The moments you wake up for no reason in the middle of the night. The chills that sweep over you when you pray. The dreams that feel more real than your waking hours. What if those aren't random? What if they're divine alerts? Heaven's way of saying, this is the turning point, the moment your prayers collide with my purpose. This isn't just the end of a waiting season. It's the beginning of a breakthrough. In the natural, nothing may look different. The job offer still hasn't come. The healing hasn't manifested. The relationship hasn't been restored. But in the spirit realm, God is aligning everything. And when heaven starts moving, the shift will be undeniable. Remember Hannah? Her womb was barren, her heart was heavy, and her prayers were silent groans too deep for words. She waited year after year while others bore children and mocked her pain. But then came the moment, that moment, when her silent agony became a divine agreement. 1 Samuel 1 verses 13 to 17 tells us that Hannah poured out her soul to the Lord at the altar. And Eli, the priest, thought she was drunk. But she wasn't intoxicated, she was interceding. Her pain had reached the point of prophetic power. And God answered. What had felt like delay was actually God preparing the world for Samuel, a prophet who would anoint kings. If Hannah had given birth earlier, the timing wouldn't have aligned with the purpose. That's what we often miss in the wait. The delay is not denial, it's design. It's heaven waiting for the perfect convergence of your promise and your purpose. And in the meantime, God is making sure your soul is strong enough to carry the weight of the blessing. Because premature breakthrough can be just as dangerous as prolonged delay. So He fortifies you before He elevates you. Joseph lived this truth too. From dream to betrayal to prison, it seemed as if his calling was forgotten. But during those years of waiting, Joseph's character was being sharpened. His leadership was being tested. His faith was being forged in the fire of injustice. And then, in a single day, everything changed. God doesn't always give warning before a miracle. Sometimes, He just opens the door. But it's not sudden to him, it only feels sudden to us. The truth is, it was being built all along in silence. In prayer. In obedience. In the waiting. That's why your tears matter. Why your persistence matters. Galatians 6 verse 9 says, "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." And maybe that's where you are. Tired. Wondering if the seeds you've sown in tears will ever produce fruit, questioning if your faithfulness was worth it. It was. It is. And it always will be. Because waiting is not idleness. It's intercession in motion. It's the kind of obedience that trusts even when there are no signs, no affirmations, no applause. It's warfare. So what do you do while you wait? You worship. You wake up early, not because you have to, but because your soul is hungry for God's whisper. You take your journal and write letters to God, not asking for anything, just pouring out what's already been given, your heart. You create a wait list, not of requests, but of testimonies. Write down every moment in the past where God came through when you thought he wouldn't. Let it become your altar. Let it remind you that if he did it before, he'll do it again. And then, most importantly, you declare. Declare over your life what the word says, not what your feelings scream. Say it out loud, "The Lord is fighting for me." Say it again, "I am not forgotten. I am being formed." Say it until the atmosphere shifts, until your emotions submit to the Spirit, until faith rises again in your chest like fresh wind. Because this isn't just about you. There's someone on the other side of your breakthrough who needs the story you're living right now. Your endurance is birthing more than answers, it's birthing legacy. Romans 8 verse 28 reminds us, "We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." And all things includes the nights you cried yourself to sleep. The mornings you forced yourself out of bed with only faith in your bloodstream. The days you kept showing up with nothing left to give. He saw it. He treasured it. And he's turning it into testimony. So if you're reading this right now with tears in your eyes, or heaviness in your chest, I want you to know something: God is not late. He's precise. And your warfare has not been in vain. It's been building momentum in the Spirit. It's time to breathe again. Time to hope again. Time to believe that what you've been waiting for is not only possible, it's prepared. If this word has touched something deep inside you, write in the comments, "I survived the wait, and I'm ready for the release." Let that be your faith statement, your turning point, your declaration that you still believe. And now, I bless you. May the God who counts every tear, who heard every silent prayer, who stayed with you through every long night, reward you openly. May he turn your wait into wonder, your pain into praise, and your delay into divine acceleration. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of the release. Faithfulness is never wasted. There's something sacred about the moments no one sees. The whispered prayers in the dark. The quiet acts of obedience when applause is absent. The simple yes to God when everything in your flesh says, "Not today." These are the holy places where faith is built, not in public platforms, but in private surrender. Yet how many times has the enemy crept in to whisper, "None of this matters"? He wants you to believe that your sacrifice is insignificant. That your love is unnoticed. That your persistence in righteousness has made no difference. He wants to twist the narrative and make you question if faithfulness is even worth it when there's no immediate reward. But the voice of God breaks through the noise with this unshakable promise: God is not unjust to forget your work and the love you have shown him. That's Hebrews 6 verse 10. And it's not just a verse. It's a verdict. Heaven has not overlooked you. Heaven remembers. God saw every time you gave when it stretched your budget. Every time you showed up when your heart was breaking. Every time you served without recognition, prayed without results, forgave without apology. It's all been recorded, not as forgotten efforts, but as seeds of honor waiting for divine harvest. What you thought was hidden was actually highlighted in heaven. Because faithfulness is never about visibility, it's about trust. It's not about outcome, it's about alignment. You chose to keep walking when the road felt deserted. You chose integrity when compromise would have been easier. You chose to speak life when bitterness was tempting. And those choices mattered more than you can imagine. Let's take a moment and reflect on Noah. For years, he built an ark in the middle of dry ground with no rain in sight. People mocked him. Time wore on. The heavens remained silent. But Noah obeyed. Faithfully. Quietly. Obediently. And then, at the appointed time, the rain came. The same ark that others ridiculed became the only place of safety when the flood arrived. What was laughed at in one season was revered in the next. That's what faithfulness does. It turns ridicule into refuge. The same is true for you. You've been building something that others don't understand. You've been obeying instructions that made no sense to the world. But you weren't building for applause, you were building for purpose. For legacy. For breakthrough. Faithfulness is prophetic in that way. It sees what hasn't happened yet and acts like it already has. Maybe you're in a season right now where it feels like the doors are still closed. You've prayed. You've fasted. You've remained consistent. And still, nothing seems to shift. But friend, I want you to consider something. What if the delay was protection, not punishment? What if God was fortifying the walls of your spirit, reinforcing your identity, and sealing your foundation, so that when the doors open, you don't collapse under the weight of the blessing? There's a reason your preparation has taken time. Because the destiny God has for you isn't fragile. It's weighty. It carries legacy. And you need it to be forged, not just formed. Every rejection. Redirection. Every detour. Development. Every not yet. A sacred get ready. Think about Ruth. She remained faithful in the small, overlooked things. She didn't chase status. She stayed close to Naomi. She worked the fields with no idea that Boaz was watching. Her faithfulness in the field led her straight into a future she never expected, a place in the lineage of Jesus Christ. That's the power of private obedience. It writes eternal stories. Don't let the silence fool you. Don't let the waiting wear you down. Heaven is not on pause. It's positioning everything in alignment with God's perfect timing. When you chose faithfulness, you chose divine timing over self-promotion. You chose kingdom pace over cultural pressure. And because of that, the doors that are opening for you will not need to be pried open. They will swing wide on the hinges of favor you didn't earn, but did prepare for. Psalm 31 verse 23 says, "Love the Lord, all his faithful people. The Lord preserves those who are true to him, but the proud he pays back in full." Faithfulness is not only noticed. It's preserved. God is holding you in his care. He is securing your reward. Not because you demanded it, but because your heart was aligned with his. And maybe now is the moment where everything begins to shift. You sense it, don't you? A stirring in your spirit. A holy anticipation. The kind of quiet expectancy that something is about to break open. It's not emotional hype, it's spiritual clarity. A sense that all the unseen labor, the heart-level obedience, the day after day, yes, to God, is about to come full circle. So what can you do today? Start a faithfulness file. Take a journal and begin listing the small things you've done in obedience to God, especially the ones no one else saw. Call them out. Record them. Not to boast, but to remember. This will become your testimony timeline. Or take a thank you walk. Go outside and simply walk while thanking God, not for what you've received, but for what you've been able to give. Thank him for giving you the strength to stay when you wanted to run. For the grace to pray when you felt empty. For the courage to love when you felt unseen. Declare out loud, I've sown in faith. I will reap in purpose. Because the truth is, you are standing on the edge of manifestation. Not because you hustled for it, but because you honored God in the hidden places. If this word is speaking to your spirit, I want to encourage you to comment, Lord, I stayed faithful, now I'm ready for the fulfillment. Let it be a declaration, a cry of faith, and a spiritual activation. And now, I bless you. May the God who remembers the smallest acts of love reward you openly. May the seeds you planted in obscurity now blossom in full view. May you walk into doors you didn't knock on, and receive blessings you didn't chase, because you were faithful when no one was watching. Faithfulness is never wasted. And yours is about to overflow. From invisible to invincible, there's a holy shift happening in your life right now. You may not see it yet. You may not feel it every day. But heaven has already spoken it, you are not just being restored. You are being repositioned. For too long, you felt invisible, overlooked, underestimated, passed by while others received the platform, the promotion, the recognition. You've prayed in private, worshipped in the wilderness, and stayed faithful when no one noticed. And all the while, the enemy whispered, you don't matter. You've been forgotten. Your story doesn't count. But the enemy was wrong, because the season you've been walking through hasn't just been emotional, it's been prophetic. This wasn't just a breakdown. It was a setup. A pruning. A preparation for something so much greater than you ever imagined. The tears you cried were not a waste, they were water for your roots. The silence wasn't abandonment, it was strategy. God has been clearing the path. Isaiah 54 verse 17 gives us this promise that resounds through time and trial, no weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is from me. This is not a maybe. It is a declaration from heaven. Weapons may form, but they will not prosper. Accusations may rise, but they will fall short. Schemes may be launched, but God has already written your deliverance. And here's the powerful truth, the trap they set for you will catch them instead. Not because you fought back. Not because you retaliated. But because you stood in the shelter of God's justice. Psalm 91 verse 8 says, only with your eyes shall you behold and see the reward of the wicked. You will witness it. Not with bitterness, but with awe. Not with pride, but with reverence for a God who defends his own. You're stepping into a season where those who dismissed you, overlooked you, or tried to discredit you will have to watch as God exalts you. But this is not about revenge. This is about redemption. This is about testimony. This is about God using your story to reveal his glory. There's something deeply sacred about the shift from invisible to invincible. When you were invisible, you learned to trust God's voice over people's applause. You found identity in his presence instead of in public affirmation. That was no accident. That was divine design. Think about Esther. A Jewish girl living in exile. No crown. No title. No voice. She was invisible in the eyes of the empire, but not in the eyes of God. And when the time came, God repositioned her. Not just to save her own life, but to save a nation. Esther didn't seek the throne. She was placed there by providence. Her visibility wasn't her goal, it was her assignment. And the same is true for you. God isn't raising you up just to be seen. He's raising you up to be strategic, to be positioned. To be a voice where others have been silenced. A light where others only saw shadows. So don't be surprised when doors open that you didn't knock on. Don't be confused when rooms you weren't invited into suddenly make room for you. Don't apologize for the favor that's on your life. You're not stepping into recognition for validation. You're stepping into purpose for transformation. This isn't about spotlight, it's about stewardship. You're not rising to get even. You're rising to give glory. You're not called to flaunt the blessing. You're called to carry it. There's an anointing on your life that can no longer be hidden. The very things that tried to bury you have become the soil for your harvest. God didn't just keep you safe, he kept you ready. Deuteronomy 28 verse 13 says, "The Lord will make you the head and not the tail. You shall be above only, and not be beneath, if you heed the commandments of the Lord your God." There's a divine reversal taking place. You've been at the bottom, He's lifting you. You've been dismissed, He's calling your name. You've been broken, He's making you whole and giving your pain a platform to help others. This is your rising season. So what can you do right now? Start speaking to your new season. Declare what you see in faith before it manifests in the natural. Say aloud, "I am not forgotten. I am being repositioned. I am stepping into divine visibility for God's purpose." Then, begin preparing like it's already here. Create a vision board, not just for success, but for service. Where will your influence go? What broken people will your healing touch? What spaces will your voice bring truth into? Begin writing down not what you want to do, but what you've been called to do. Also, write a thank you letter to your wilderness. Yes, the season that broke you. The people who misunderstood you. The silence that taught you to listen. Write a letter of closure, and in it, declare your readiness for the new. Because the truth is, you were never invisible to God. In Luke 1 verse 48, Mary declares, "For he has regarded the lowly state of his maidservant, for behold, henceforth all generations will call me blessed." That's what happens when God lifts someone who was once hidden. The world takes notice. But not because of who you are, because of what He has done. If you feel this word confirming something deep in your spirit, write this in the comments: "I'm stepping from invisible to invincible, for God's glory." Let that be your declaration, your act of faith, your spiritual alignment. And now, I bless you. May the God who sees what is hidden and exalts in due time lift you with purpose. May He position you not for popularity, but for kingdom impact. May every lie spoken against you be silenced, and every promise spoken over you be fulfilled. May the invisible battles you fought turn into visible victories that glorify the King. You are not who they said you were. You are not stuck. You are not lost. You are rising. You are chosen. You are invincible in the hands of the Almighty. And the world is about to see what heaven has been preparing all along. This is the justice of heaven. If this word resonated deep in your soul, don't just move on, respond. This is not the time to stay silent. This is the moment to stand in faith and declare that your season is shifting. Comment below, "My justice is coming." Let those words be your public act of trust in the God who never misses a moment. If this video confirmed what your spirit already knew, that heaven has been watching, that your tears have not been wasted, that your quiet obedience was divine strategy, then like this video and share it with someone else who's been waiting for their own breakthrough. You never know whose faith will be ignited by your courage. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Spiritual Journals. This isn't just a YouTube channel, it's a community of chosen ones growing together in truth, in identity, and in spiritual growth. Turn on the notifications so you never miss a word that's been prayed over, prepared, and released for a time such as this. Now, receive this blessing in faith. May the God who saw it all now act on your behalf. May He lift every burden, reverse every injustice, and usher you into the victory He authored before the battle even began. May every delay turn to divine acceleration, every loss into legacy, and every invisible moment into undeniable testimony. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are seen, by the only one whose vision writes destiny. The wait is over. The war is shifting. Your justice is not just near, it's here.